Great, great. And then we do have Hiwot from our Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program. She let me know that she'd like to come on and talk about a new opportunity, I think. So Hiwot, this would be a good time to describe what you got going there.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to share an update we have on the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program. If you don't know already, we have $30 million appropriated for the program this fiscal year, and we're getting ready to publish the Notice of Funding Opportunity to designate the fourth round of defense manufacturing communities. We are planning to release the funding opportunity early March. We're currently working on finalizing that, and we will hold a webinar before we publish the NOFO on the 28th of February, just to share with everyone where things are at and what to expect, and to encourage everyone to start preparing their applications until, not to wait until we publish the notice.
That's great, Hiwot. And so no doubt you'll be, giving us more, documents about what's going to happen next so that we can share that with the community. When should we expect those?
So on the 28th of February is when we'll be able to kind of have a little bit more definite idea on what the notice will contain. And then once we publish the NOFO, we will shortly do a more in-depth webinar on that. So be on the lookout for that.
Great, great. Thank you very much. And so this is like perfect timing, Hiwot, because that's what we wanted to have a round robin today. To talk about, the great success that we've had in terms of creating these kind of bottom-up programs. For those of you new to AMCC, this goes back, to like 2014 and the IMCP initiative of the federal agencies coming together to try to engender a bottom-up economic development model that brings regional stakeholders together, public and private stakeholders, to apply for designations of one sort or another. And to the great credit of DoD, they created the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program as one of the early efforts to do that, to strengthen the defense industrial base. And so now we're up to 17 of those regions. And so Hiwot, who is the program manager for that one, for that program, is describing a new round of activity for designation. So it's very exciting. Hiwot, thank you for your leadership. Hiwot's been remarkable also. She's working with the representing her program in the metrics work that we're doing with multiple agencies, and that we're showcasing trying to get feedback from our regions in regional visits. So thank you, an ongoing thank you, Hiwot, for all of that work. But it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge for regions to come together and organize around that. And our speaker today, like, this is not a one-shot deal. Desiree Reed from LSI helped AMCC get this EDA Communities of Practice grant. We thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring her on. We'll bring her back to talk about this issue. But I want to talk to you all, the communities here. We have a great number of BFFs on here to hear from you all, just anecdotally, but you guys are in the weeds about the challenges with organizing to get these designations and to keep these designations. I think Nancy Gilbert from EDA, we had a great presentation. If you missed it last Monday, from Christina Walrun from the Department of Energy. They have, $6 billion for this. DOE has $6 billion for these demonstration grants. And Nancy asked a good question on that webinar about, like, is there money there to help folks to organize, to apply for these designations, which is relevant for that one, but it's relevant for all of these ones. And, and so I think that it's a great problem to have, and yet it's a challenge nonetheless. And you all know it if you've been involved in AMCC for any period of time, and we have to all work together to solve for it. That includes our BFFs have to help solve for it. That means our communities need to solve for it. We visited Utah. We heard from Talinda and her stakeholders how they're, trying to develop capacity to evaluate all of the opportunities and then weave them together in a kind of a regionally coherent way. And so that's, some of the things that I'm hoping to draw some of our leaders. And as you know, when we do these round robins, we just call people out. So, be prepared for that, and we'll see how that goes. And then we'll continue the conversation. So let me turn to Western Pennsylvania and Petra Mitchell, who is there. And we talked briefly about this challenge. And so kind of there's a two-part challenge, right? There's the challenge of just organizing to get designated. And then how do you keep those designations and keep the capacity to deal with that going forward? So Petra, give us all your 2 cents. You guys have had great success, and yet it's a continuing challenge. So talk about the 2 parts of that challenge, if you would.
Okay, thanks, Matt, and hello, everyone. As you know, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. My organization's Catalyst Connection. Our main work is the MEP work, but we have been able to secure some of this additional resources, for our organization and our community, including the Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program. And I should also mention, we're also part of our regional Build Back Better effort. So I've got similar challenges there. So certainly, the first round Defense Manufacturing Communities, in my mind, was quite an effort. I mean, it was a new program. We convened, we have 12 subrecipients in a 2-state region. So just pulling everyone together, getting organized, getting the program started, that took quite some time. And I'm glad we did it because we're, stronger for it and so forth. But with 12 subrecipients, it does take a little bit of time to get things off the ground. And 3 years goes by very, very quickly, as you all know. So we're here in our 3rd year. We're working hard to, I guess, essentially wrap up the program, but I have to say we have a lot of momentum. And so now I feel like in my mind, we kind of have to pause from that and regroup to be able to respond to this new NOFO, be competitive, and continue the work for another 3 years. And so the challenge there, when the Defense Community Program was first announced, there was this notion of you become designated as a community. And for those that are designated, then they have the opportunity to apply for funding. So I guess I would just say at that time, I did have an expectation that round 2 or future rounds up to 10 years would be more streamlined, and that it would not necessarily be a significant or as significant of an effort to respond to a funding opportunity and be competitive and all that kind of stuff. So I understand there's a balance, but I have to say I am feeling the crunch of the resources that will be required to essentially recompete 3 years after we just got started. I was hoping that we would have a longer runway before we had to, I'm using the words recompete.
Hey, Petra, tell us a little bit about how you guys assess the range of opportunities, right? Because, right, you're talking about, 2 of them in your context, right? The Defense Manufacturing Community Support Program from DoD, and then the Build Back Better Regional Challenge that you're kind of trying to weave together from EDA, Department of Commerce. But then, we're sharing all this stuff about the Department of Energy. There's an NSF engines program. There's a lot of things going on there. How do you guys deal with that constellation of opportunities?
Yeah, I'll have to say, Matt, that just my own personal philosophy is that we owe it to our community to pursue as much as we can, to pursue essentially every opportunity that's relevant. Now, we don't always lead those opportunities. So NSF Engines, for example, our universities are leading those. But, my organization and our partners are part of that. And again, I just see it as a responsibility to our community to bring as much capacity and resources as we can, and do the best we can with our responses. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Buckley, what about you guys in Wisconsin? How do you deal with the constellation of opportunities? Like just understanding them, number one, much less, deciding which stakeholders to try to bring together to apply for them. Yeah.
Well, it's always, it's always a bit of drinking from a fire hose. Uncovering another 20 of them last week and just figuring out which ones are worth our time. Our biggest challenge here is building consortium. I mean, we're a pretty provincial state, and our ability to pull people together around particular topics is the secret sauce that we bring to the equation. Because we understand the small and medium manufacturers, and that floor tends to be a base on whatever activity somebody wants to jump into, whether it's a university or one of our governments or one of our regional EDOs. So that's the way we look at these things and find ways to jump in. We're not real interested in participating with groups that are showing up just to get a piece of the pie. We want to deal with people that are saying, here's what I bring to the table and how can I make the entire group better? So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there a go-to place? I mean, for, you, Buckley, or Petra, or whoever, where you guys think you feel confident you have the, you're understanding the universe of opportunities?
I don't know. Petra's a lot better at this than I am. But I don't think I ever understand the whole universe of opportunities, because just about the time I think I do, I find another pocket that I haven't pursued. But I think the way that I get to feel comfortable about it is just having as many tentacles out as I possibly can, just to listen to what's happening in the ecosystem and what could possibly use the perspective of the MEP to make better.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that David and I and the AMCC network is going to be working on, is trying to organize and communicate the range of those opportunities. But Dion Jackson in California at USC, how do you kind of assess the range of opportunities and work on getting your stakeholders to go for them?
Good morning. So I'm not sure that I have a good answer to assessing the range of opportunities. Assessing opportunities when we are aware of them would be immediately going to the NOFO and reviewing what the requirements are so that we know who to reach out to in order to put together the best proposal possible. We have relationships that we've been putting together over the last 8 years. And the key for me is identifying partners for whom the NOFO expands what they do best. So there are times when we've brought in partners who don't have much experience in order to expand their capacity. But ideally, we're looking for people where it's not going to be outside their area of expertise to participate, so that they have the time and the interest and the will to put their best ideas forward as we put together a proposal.
Mm-hmm. Nancy Gilbert from EDA is on here. Nancy, can you give us kind of your take on how regions should deal with this? I mean, it's a challenge, no doubt, and I'm sure there's a lot of intergovernmental discussion about it. But what can you say to these communities about process and the direction that that's going?
Thanks, Matt. I love this conversation, and I know how challenging it can be. I think most of you have received kind of the bulletin that we have tried to put together, curate a little bit here at EDA, although that's sort of an unofficial look because we know our stakeholders are doing many different things. We're kind of at the one end, I guess, of the fire hose, pushing out a lot of information, so I can appreciate how challenging it is for those of you receiving information from lots of different places. We know that some of the communities of practice like this one for manufacturing communities that AMCC is leading are looking at easier ways to do that. So, we try to crawl through the grants.gov and look for those opportunities that look like they might make sense for economic development and put those on our webpage. But that's certainly not curated enough for all of you. So I think, as Dion said, knowing who your partners are in advance and having, and I think, Buckley mentioned the same, I know Petra does this and all of you do, having the relationships in advance is what you need, because once you have to submit a proposal like we recently did, it's sort of too late to start a relationship at that point in time. So we're trying to support coalition building and collaboration any way that we can. So that's kind of a non-answer to your question there, but I know my colleague Hiwot looks like she has something to say.
Please go ahead, Hiwot. Thank you, Nancy.
And support to what you were saying, Nancy. I mean, first off, to Petra's point, it takes time to put these applications together, which is why we're trying to reach out as many stakeholders as possible, even before we publish the notice, so that you have enough time once the notice is out to put your applications together. And also the fact that, you have been able to collaborate through these different funding opportunities, including the DMCSP program, would help the communities be, poised to access other federal opportunities. We've seen the trend that, the designated defense manufacturing communities accessing other funding opportunities like the Build Back Better program, and vice versa. So I think this is a good trend that we're seeing. And also we need the connecting platforms to share this kind of information. So what you are doing at AMCC is really great. The initiatives being taken under the communities of practice that EDA is supporting. We're trying to do as much as possible to, on our end, trying to convene our manufacturing communities to help them learn about other opportunities that are out there. So I think these kinds of initiatives would make a difference and need to be encouraged.
Yeah, thank you, Hiwot, again on that. And that's a credit to the stakeholders in AMCC. So, for example, Desiree Reed, who from LSI, that came to us from our friends in Utah, and LSI wants to work with us. We met with them in Utah to do pro bono work to help this community of practice understand best practices on how to understand the scope of the federal opportunities through their lens, for sure. But what I'm getting at is I want to encourage everyone, like LSI is doing, is to share their best practices. I mean, of course, it's a competitive environment, but as we've learned over and over again in the AMCC community, there's plenty to go around, and each region has distinguishing characteristics. And we're going to have a lot more opportunities. So sharing that is super important to each of our regions and to the collective, the American Project, if we're going to really strengthen the American manufacturing. So Nancy, you just dropped the EDA webpage for highlighting current opportunities. Yeah, we put that in the AMCC update. Thank you for that. Let me take a moment and see if any other region wants to speak out about the the challenge is, the good problem of assessing and organizing to respond to these federal opportunities. Does anybody else want to speak to that before we move on?
Matt, this is Zoraida. I would agree with, I think it was Buckley who said, I'm trying to turn my camera on. There we go. In terms of, the challenge of sometimes somebody just like flies in and says, oh, we want to take advantage of this opportunity for Florida, and they're not even in Florida, and so we've found successful to always be in line and in sync with our state government and make sure that they see us as a resource, because oftentimes the state government has to designate whoever's going to apply, or there's a role for state government to play. And so I think it's been helpful as we've developed that to make sure that we are, as the Florida MEP, are seen as that go-to organization for manufacturing, so that when some of these fly-ins just appear and say, we're going to do this for Florida, they don't even know the ecosystem. They don't have relationship with the stakeholders. They just are trying to come in. Honestly, I think sometimes to just benefit from it, so.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Zoraida, about, the kind of the rowing in the same direction, with the state government. I mean, that's a super important theme. I mean, we learned that in Utah. We're now, talking with Connecticut and Rhode Island, and they are really focused on that. Connecticut created a chief manufacturing officer. He's made Paul Lavoie. He made a presentation here on an AMCC call. Point well taken. This is a super important conversation, you guys, and we're going to keep it going. Desiree will come back on, and that'll be a big theme. David and I are talking about, what are we going to do on the website, to share these best practices about the scope of the opportunities and how you apply for them. Let's see. I'm sorry, before I move on, I wanted to turn it to Matt Fieldman, because he just dropped a whole bunch of good stuff in there. And any other comments on that topic?
Sure. Hey, everybody. I don't have anything to share on the conversation at hand, but just wanted to share that we just got back from Germany with our latest group, and you can learn what we learned in Munich and Augsburg on our upcoming webinar. And then very excited to see the apprenticeship funding from JFF. So we're throwing together a little webinar just to discuss and learn from them. And then, as usual, we're diving deep into what's working in workforce. And one of the things that we're seeing a lot of is supervisor training, just a higher demand than ever before, figuring out how to keep people through better communication skills and just better supervision. So we're featuring 3 MEPs that are very good at this, and that is coming up as well. So the links are all there. Please mark your calendar. And I always like to click on them and then download the calendar link right into my calendar. Just a tip from someone who uses Zoom a lot. But anyway, we'd love to have you on any of these things. And if you're not on the monthly email list, just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. But I send out a monthly update, and happy to include anyone who's interested.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you. That's super important. America Works work, and we'll put that information. I'm sure David's grabbing that so that we can share that in other ways. So thank you for that. Zoraida, you dropped something in here about a Rosie the Riveter program. That's attractive. Tell us about that. Yeah.
I did. I had mentioned in a previous call before, and I think Tulinda connected us to an institute that had a program with Girl Scouts. So it's actually worked out really well. We're signing an MOU with them, or a partnership with them. But this Rosie Riveters organization has STEM kits to encourage girls to pursue careers in STEM, but we're kind of, taking a twist and focusing what are those STEM skills that are needed for manufacturing careers, and bundling it all in a manufacturing in a box program for Girl Scouts, which we're piloting now. Hopefully we'll launch it at their annual conference in Orlando this coming summer, and basically to encourage other MEPs to develop partnerships like that, and even just take this pilot and duplicate it, take all the content and duplicate it in other communities. And then also, it doesn't have to be tied to Girl Scouts, right? We'll eventually fund it so that it can be delivered to schools and get more kids to do these projects. For Girl Scouts, it's particularly interesting because STEM badges are the least completed type of STEM badges for Girl Scouts. And they think it's because troop leaders are kind of scared of engaging in some of these engineering or math type activities because they're not trained to do it. So these kids give it, have all the tools they need and all the instructions and everything literally in a box. So
That's great.
Can accomplish that. So we're excited to launch that on Friday.
Yeah, well, great. Another example of good kind of inter-region collaboration. So that's awesome. I see Kevin Ross from Accenture on there. I want to say thanks to you, Kevin, for the conversations about participating in a California convening. Dion down in Los Angeles. So we need to loop you in on that conversation as it develops. Yeah, very exciting, as are all of our conversations about visits coming up. So super excited about that. We have a couple of minutes left. Any other comments or suggestions for the good of the order? Michelle, you there?
I'm here. I think
All
we're
right.
good.
Great.
All right.
All right, you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. And next Monday is a holiday, so we will see everyone back on Monday, February 27th, and wishing everyone a great week.
Thank you, guys.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.